I'm Karen, and my colleague Kim and I studied soil, so we created a very short lesson on soil. It's actually two-pronged. So first of all, soil is not dirt, so remember that. It is important. So to engage the students, we thought that we would have students go out and dig up some soil and bring it back into the classroom, spread it out on the table, look at it, observe it, and have some data collection sheets of some kind around on the walls. So what color is the soil? What does it smell? What's the texture? Have a magnifying glass available, and then anything extra that they notice to look at the soil and questions. So then there would be some discussion about that. Then we would introduce the vocabulary. So we have soil, texture, textural triangle, which is really important. That's what you see up on the screen. And the different kinds of soils that are out there and what makes up soil. There is a video that's attached to learn how to determine soil texture by feel. It's a really great video that we watched. That would be one portion of the lesson, to literally get our hands dirty working on the soil texture. Of course, within all of this, there would be the question why. Why is this important? What's going on? What's happening? We do have a crash course video attached to this about what is soil and why is it important. So again, another opportunity for discussion. This is a lesson that probably would be several days. Then we're going to do some exploration. So in our thought processes for this, we would have several stations of soil samples. We are teaching middle school, lower middle school, so using food items to replicate the soil elements is important for our students, because then they want to get in there and they want to learn about it, and then they're going to eat it when they're done. So the idea is we used an Oreo cheesecake mixture. It had all of the elements that we needed to replicate sand, silt, and clay. And they would measure out. We would have pre-designated mixtures that would be related to the percentages that we were hoping the kids would be able to determine. So they would measure it, they would weigh it, they would sift and separate it, they would weigh each element and then calculate the percentage to determine, using the textural triangle that was on the other slide, what type of soil it is. And then, of course, to evaluate, we have several different methods to determine what they've learned. So one-pager, bingo game, slideshow, podcast, paper test, an exit ticket, whatever evaluative assessment you want to use for your test. Ms. Kim is going to demonstrate the hands-on activity of our lesson to determine the soil characterizations.
So as Karen said, you could very much do this with actual soil. We have several samples here that Dr. Nanny was able to get for us, but I'm very elementary brained, so we have decided to use food because my kids love anything that we make with food. Is always more engaging for 4th, 5th graders. So we have some crumbled up Oreo cookies in big chunks, and then we have very fine crushed Oreo cookies, and then we have the cheesecake mixture that is going to represent our sand, silt, and clay. So what we did was we would have 5 stations set up throughout the classroom, and we would make predetermined mixtures into bowls for the students, just however much you want to make of these. They would have to find the pre-sifted weight of the mixture, and we would provide digital scales. Of course, they would have to have some knowledge to know, what the weight of the bowl on there. Once they got the predetermined weight, they would put it through the 3-layer sieve that we have here. And you can see the first one is pretty thick. All of a sudden gets stuck in here is the big Oreo cookies. The next one is a little bit smaller, and then finally we have one that is a 200 mesh that nothing, hopefully we'll go through that one. We would just put the mixture in here. And we used a spoon to kind of shove it through because the sugar mixture is a little bit harder to get stuck on the cookies. So we have this one. After they get each layer sifted out, then they're going to get the weight of each one individually. and record that down on their data sheet. And then we will teach them how to get the percentage of each layer. And then we can plug it into, can you pull that triangle back up? No, that's okay. Once they get the percentage of each layer, we can plug it back into our textural triangle and we can get the soil texture or soil profile that's on how it falls into the triangle. And this pretty much mirrors what we, besides using word cookies, what we did in our research this summer, because we would take soil that we pulled from last year and we would determine the sand, silt, and clay percentage of each one, and then we looked at our triangle and determined what the textural profile was. Okay, well, I've determined that if I do this with my kids, I will do the triangle part as a group because it's a little bit hard to read sometimes. There's lines going all through it, and Karen and we had a high school student, Mandy, that worked with us, and with the three of us, we would still get a little bit off on our lines sometimes, but then you can determine what type of soil you're looking at based on your percentage of sand, silt, and clay.
So are the biggest chunks the clay?
The sand.
In
Clay is
Oklahoma,
actually the
soil
smallest.
sand is a lot more prominent than
Okay.
clay. Well, it depends on how deep you dig, but our soil samples that we were pulling for our microplastic study came from down by the river, so it was a lot more sand.
But the bigger chunks represent the sand, the chocolate crumbs represent the silt, and the cheesecake represents the clay because it's much finer.
In our head, I know clay because it sticks together,
Yeah.
but the particles are much, much smaller.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any other questions? We appreciate your time. Thank you.